What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Rainy here with RTS Mobile Gaming, bringing you another phenomenal video. Today we are playing the Lord of the Rings Rise to War, and happy Friday day to you. Happy Friday. In today's video we are talking about Skalhelm. Okay, this is going to be a guide for Skalhelm best gear, units, and skills, and we'll be looking at Skalhelm in late game PvP battle against an enemy Theoden with decent gear. Okay, so let's get right into it. Like and sub, drop down in the description, join the Forge Discord, and here we go. So, Skalhelm is one of the female Ringwraith commanders added here in Season 4 for the Lord of the Rings Rise to War. Skalhelm is an interesting commander. She gives unique bonuses to her warg units, right? To her wargs, which of course are going to be the Tier 2 Stalkers or the Tier 3 Raiders are going to be the main use cases for her. Raiders have fairly decent damage, output at 34 to 40, so they're not too bad as overall damage. They also get damage bonuses against enemy mounted units, which is nice to see. So if you are fighting enemy mounted units, like in this combat video against the enemy Theoden, you will be uniquely equipped to deal bonus damage and really put out a good, impressive performance. Now, the one thing about the Raiders is they have very low defense. They're extremely squishy units, so it's important that you specialize in equipment that gives defense. Skalhelm also gives good defense capabilities to the wargs, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now, how does Skalhelm work? Okay, Skalhelm is a unique commander that really only works with warg units because her entire R0 tree is called Lord of the Wolves. It only gives bonuses to warg units, okay? You're going to get these 50% chance to deal a 40% poison damage nuke. You're going to give your wargs immunity to madness, which is great. So really you just need an anti-stun helmet, which we are running here. So you're basically immune to crowd control for the first few rounds. Get some damage out, pew pew. In addition to that, nice poison damage nuke, which you'll probably see somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000 damage depending on the hit, which we'll look at the report in a minute. I haven't opened the report yet, by the way, so we'll open that together. Then Skalhelm gives plus 40 defense to wargs, which is really, really key. Now we're looking at plus 21 defense on the gear, another plus 40 defense on the beast taming ability for a total of 61 plus defense to the wargs. That is almost triple their base defense, okay? So they're going to be up in the 90 range, which will be really, really strong and tanky. Then we have the Brawler training, which is going to give all of your units plus 21% damage against enemy melee units. Very strong there, okay? So, I've seen some builds with Skalhelm where people go deep into the R5 tree. Let me tell you why that doesn't work, okay? The entire point of this build is to make the wargs very tanky and put out decent damage, okay? Since Lord of the Wolves doesn't trigger from Retaliate, it only triggers from the auto attack, you want to have strong auto attacks that are able to trigger a strong poison damage response. How do you do that, right? Well, if you're only increasing your damage by 21% against enemy melee units, now we need to look at ways to increase the poison damage nuke, which is going to be from your Ringwraith tree. If you drop down into the R5 tree on Skalhelm, you have some interesting commander abilities, such as the ability to deal focus damage nuke, the ability to inflict madness every couple rounds, or the ability to do a poison damage nuke. But at the end of the day, you're not here to make Skalhelm be a damage dealer. It's just not the point of Skalhelm. With all of Skalhelm's damage dealing abilities all combined, maybe you'll break 100 to 120k damage. It's similar to Gandalf the White, right? Gandalf the White has a whole damage tree that's dedicated, a whole title tree, right, that's dedicated to dealing damage, and you can max that thing out as much as you want. At the end of the day, you're not going to break more than 120k damage with perfect gear. So don't get into that trap with Skalhelm. So I like the direction of this build where Sarevok here, Sarevok, shout out to Sarevok, by the way. I like the build here where Sarevok has gone into the R3 Ringwraith tree and has grabbed Nazgul Screech. I think that's going to be very successful, okay? Because now you're going to stun the enemies in the first couple rounds, deal some half-decent damage, and you're really going to increase your warg's damage output, which is how the build's designed, okay? So, In addition to that, gear-wise, right, we've talked about units and the skills. In the gear-wise, we've got Easterling Spear, which is going to be just plus attack to evil men, which won't really affect your wargs. It'll be plus damage for your mounted units. The Cutlass will be slightly better because the Cutlass will give you the +3 damage to all your melee as well as the 9%, but Easterling Spear is a close second. Then we have Goblin Armor, which is really great. This is going to be plus defense to your orcs. I don't know. I use the Scale Mail. Scale Mail is going to be a little better, okay? Scale Mail gives higher defense. Just use the Scale Mail. Goblin Armor is a close second. If you don't have the Scale Mail, use the Goblin Armor. It's fine. Horseman's Helm. This is, of course, going to be probably best in slot. It's going to give you plus stun immunity. Best in slot for a purple, I should say, okay? The orcish whatever Warhelm with the stun immunity is going to be a little bit better, but this will be great. It'll give you plus defense. It'll give you stun immunity for the first few rounds. Then we have Palantir of Orthanc. This is going to be fantastic as well, giving you the pursuit buff for the first few rounds. So you're basically immune to CC. They can't CC you for the first 2 rounds. You're going to be able to bypass enemy avoidance for the first 2 rounds. It's going to give you a good advantage in the first few rounds against a lot of commanders like Gandalf the Grey, Gil-galad, people like that, okay? All right, into the actual Theoden. We're going to take a 8-second skim of Theoden, okay? Decent gear on Theoden, nothing crazy. It's not astoundingly great. It's half decent. Okay, the skills, I don't know what's happening with the skills. He should have 4 more points in Horsemaster to gain that +4 attack and the 5 HP. Maybe with +4 attack and 5 HP for his cavalry, this Theoden would have performed a little bit better. But overall, he's got Rohirrim maxed out. He's got Cleave. We don't have Chaotic Retreat. We have Defensive Stance, which is going to be some damage reduction for your units, and then a Cleanse. So the Cleanse will actually be useful. This will probably cleanse both of the damage debuffs off his units. So having the Renewed for this particular build is actually going to be a benefit for Theoden. So the only thing I would do differently for this build is get rid of Defensive Stance. I would max out Horsemaster, and then I'd put my extra points in Chaotic Retreat. That's how I would change this build, okay? Other than the gear. The gear needs some work too. But it's a good show, right? We're looking at a 45 Theoden with half decent gear, with a little bit of a weird build, but overall you're going to get the point. And you're looking at a Skalhelm that really pulled through with enormous advantage over the Theoden. It's not like it was a neck and neck fight where if Theoden had 4 more damage and 5 HP, it would be a sure victory. It would be a little bit closer, but this is a good display for Skalhelm. Okay, so let's check it out, folks. Again, the first 2 rounds. We're going to see if Theoden is able to cleanse pretty much everything off of his units. We'll see how that works out. Theoden will be able to cleanse Ringwraith, okay? Theoden will be able to cleanse the Nazgul Screech stun. Well, the damage from it anyways, not the stun. So he will cleanse Ringwraith, which means the poison damage will be dealing less damage once it's pulled off. All right? Here we go, Skalhelm for 2707. The Raiders, okay, doing surprisingly little damage for a full march of Raiders, but the poison damage nuke that came afterwards was half decent for sure. So here we see the Battered is reducing the Raiders' damage by 10%, so maybe this will be up in the 14 to 15k range. Cataphracts are also very tanky in general, right? As we know, Cataphracts have 25% damage mitigation against enemy melee units. So you're actually dealing 35% reduced damage output right now. So just picture these Raiders dealing 35% greater damage, okay? Maybe this will be up in the 18k range. Maybe this Pursuit would be a little higher. I don't know. Then we have Pursuit coming in hot and heavy with the Lord of the Wolves. Pew pew in the face. Good damage nuke there. Theoden is now curing the focus damage received and the focus damage dot. So he hasn't cured the poison damage received yet, which is great. We should still see some good damage nukes from the Raiders. Here we go. Here's a better damage hit. This is what it should look like without the Cavalier's 25% damage bonus. Okay, they still have battered, which is okay. So the Raiders coming in hot and heavy, hitting for 16,005 damage with another damage nuke from the poison dot. Lord of the Wolves at 9520. I mean, he's putting out some decent damage. I'm actually surprised at how much he's dealing. Here we have Cleve coming in here, defensive stance. Dark Ranger. Now both of the units are afflicted by madness, right? Let's see if madness really affects anything here. Cavaliers afflicted by madness, but they resist. The Raiders coming in hot and heavy, hitting again some pretty good damage. They're dealing some pretty good damage here, and then we have the Cataphracts with their self-inflicted madness hitting the Cavaliers. The Renewed has now cleansed the poison damage off the Cataphracts. So if the Raiders hit the Cataphracts again, you'll see a huge reduction in the damage output. But look at this. We are just pumping away damage with Skalhelm. It's so interesting. It's too bad it doesn't work with Retaliate, but what an interesting build where we keep seeing these 15,000 damage nukes combined with the poison dot. And these guys are super duper tanky, by the way, right? Like, what's my total defense with all the abilities? Let's scroll up. Our total defense on the Raiders is 94.5 defense. That's pretty substantial. Pretty substantial. So they are really able to reduce the enemy damage output. And they've just been pumping away damage, like crazy damage. Here we go on round 6. Poison damage is cured off the Cavaliers, so all the poison damage debuffs are gone. But we will see Skalhelm afflicting madness again. Okay. Both enemy units resisted madness here. Here's that reduced poison damage output against the Cavaliers now that they've lost that ring wraith debuff. Overall, what an interesting fight, guys. Look at this. This is crazy. I can't believe how well he's performing. He really gives some great defensive benefits to his units, and having those couple points in Dark Ranger is enough points to trigger the madness. You only need 1 point in Dark Ranger in order to trigger madness in rounds 3, 6, and 9 from this 2-unit combination. How interesting. Okay. I mean, that's the fight, guys. The only other thing that maybe you would even debate would be potentially if Skalhelm, if you were running this, and by the way, this is that Executioner tree I was telling you about, does almost no damage. This is terrible. It ticks for like, a couple thousand. It's upsetting. But having the Consequence of Greed is a guaranteed madness. I was just messing around with this build for sweeping. Raven's Feast. This would be the only thing worth talking about, potentially moving some points around. Or if you're a high enough respect level, I would try and get some points into Raven's Feast, because you'll see this being somewhere around 24 to 28% damage increase for the first 3 rounds. It'll help you get that much more of an advantage. I don't know, maybe you don't get Nazgul Screech, maybe you get Ring Wraith, maybe you put some points in Executioner just to get Raven's Feast, maybe with a high enough, like Respect 8 to Respect 10 range. Let's see how many points we need for that. Let's break out the calculator, folks. All right. So we'll have 29 out of 29 Lord of the Wolves, 29, and then we'll have to have 22 or 21 in Raven down here, 21. Now we're at 50. So you need 65 points to max out Ring Wraith after that. 65 points on a commander who's balanced. He gets +2 skill points, plus you have the 4 from proficiency. So you have 56, and you need 65. You'd have to be respect level 11 to max that out. All right. So at respect level 11, you could run that build where you have enough points to... So I guess, let me rephrase this whole thing, okay? Maybe at respect level 8 or 9, it's worth getting this. Maybe respect level 8, you can have both of these maxed out. And you'll have this at 10, 11 points. You'll still get 20, 22% increased damage from the poison. That would be the only change I would say, is if you can get this guy to respect 7 or 8, it's worth maybe grabbing Executioner and Raven's Feast and then putting your extra points in Ring Wraith. I wouldn't put points in Nazgul Screech unless you're like respect 25 Mega Whale. Okay, it's just not going to do it for you. But All right, those are the only improvements I'd make to the Skalhelm build. You guys saw the report. I love you all a long time. All right, thanks for watching. Let me close this here. Thanks for watching. Like and sub. Randy out.